Hello, my name is Aya Kanai, and I am the head of content and editorial partnerships here at Pinterest. And I am so glad to be here today with New York Times bestselling author, former editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. What else has she done? She is the producer and a judge on Project Runway, and recent newlywed. I have to slip that one in. And of course, also just a little bit of a cultural ambassador to Michelle Obama's When We All Vote initiative. And here I am here today with Elaine Welteroth, who is all of those things and more. And she's also my buddy. And so I'm really excited to talk to you today about everything that you do.
Well, first of all, I think everybody watching just needs to join us in a virtual round of applause because it's Aya's first day on the big job as the big boss. So congratulations.
Thank you. It's really funny because when Elaine and I were talking before we did this interview, Elaine just like can't stop the journalist in her. Like
it's embarrassing.
Like, I know
it's
like
compulsive.
Right. It's like I'm here to interview Elaine, and she's like, "Well, I want to ask you questions," which is so funny because both of us come from the editorial space in the publishing world. Elaine was the fabulous editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, and she quite simply transformed the brand into something that it had never been seen before. And I think that that idea about creating a transformational space through your content, whatever surface you're on, is something that's so core to who you are. And it's what you did at Teen Vogue. It's what you do now on the many projects that you do. Can you tell our creators a little bit of your thinking behind this idea of a transformational lens?
Yeah, such a good question. I can't help it. I really think it is a compulsive part of my nature, but it was something that I cultivated over time. That transformational lens that you're talking about. I think I've always had it, but the bravery to employ it in spaces where maybe I'm not seeing anyone, create or create into in a way that I have a vision for. It's sometimes scary to be the first one or the only one, to go left and kind of create a path of your own. But it really started at Teen Vogue, during my time at Teen Vogue, being able to see the opportunity to take something that was really successful in one arena and seen in one light, and to really like push for a more inclusive representation of what it could mean to be a Teen Vogue reader. And I remember the conversations internally on our team just really shifted. Like, I think any change has to start on the inside, right? And so I remember us sitting around a table and being like, it's gotta be about more than just a pretty picture.
Absolutely.
What's the story? What's the story that only we can tell? And why do we care? Why should someone care? When we're thinking about the cultural context, the political landscape, the social environment that we're all living in, all of that informs a user or an audience's experience of your content. So in order to deepen that connection with your audience, we really have to do more critical work on the back end and think and challenge ourselves to just think a little bit more critically, right? And so the easy question it was like our filter. It was like, this is a beautiful picture, but it's got to be about more than the beautiful picture. What's the story? What's the story? And so that has become kind of my lens on anything that I'm putting out into the world. What's the why? Yes. Right? And it's not to say that like beautiful pictures don't inspire. They do. And I think, we need to see beautiful pictures of different kinds of people, different kinds of bodies, doing things that maybe aren't, stereotypical. Those kinds of images can be revolutionary. Yeah. They can be empowering. Representation matters. We know that. We've been talking about that for so long. I'm a huge proponent of, like, especially for women, we're allowed to be beautiful and political. We're allowed to be, stylish and strong in terms of standing for what we believe in. So I believe that I don't believe in these like old binaries. Like you're only able to be one thing and you have to stick in that box, stay in that box and stick in your lane. I don't believe in that. I think that's an old way of thinking. I think we're better creators when we can abandon those limitations and really tap into what we care about, and be bold enough to translate that into the work that we're putting out into the world.
And that's why I think that, what has been so exciting about starting here at Pinterest is that the belief about all of the content that we are encouraging our creators to make is that your content, your Elaine and all of your content is worth more than a double tap. And social media, although it sometimes has a life cycle beyond 24 hours, for the most part, often has a termination of that amount of time. And what is an incredible aspect of what we have here at Pinterest is that your content and all of your content lives on in search in perpetuity. And so all of the people who find Elaine's content from now all the way into the future forevermore will be able to experience Elaine's thoughts and her outfits, and those are both, as Elaine is saying, really worthy. One of the really interesting things as I have been entering into the technology space that we are talking about a lot is this idea of algorithmic bias. So unconscious bias, we've all been talking about that. Systemic racism, we've all been talking about that. And in the technology space, algorithmic bias means that the beauty standards, let's say, of 10, 12 years ago when you and I were both working in the media space, I think we all agree now we have different ideas of what the beauty standards are.
Yes.
Culture has shifted, people's minds have shifted. Unfortunately, some of those beauty standards are still in the algorithm. And what's really exciting about what we are doing here at Pinterest is that we are introducing skin tone filters. Soon we'll be having hair filters, because you should not have to say, I should not have to say, winged cat eye liner for Asian women.
Right.
I shouldn't have to say that
Right.
when I'm searching for that result. And nobody of any culture and creed should have to look for that. We should be able to have machines that know.
Yes.
And the beauty and the curse of user-generated content is that we have to help the machines learn. And you are also helping the machines learn with the 15% project. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Yeah. I love everything you were saying, by the way, because it is the responsibility of the community to change the complexion and the nature and the function of the platform. When we think about the way other social media platforms started, the intent might be completely different than what the actual function of these platforms, the utility of these platforms is now today. And that's because we bring the meaning. We introduce new value propositions to these platforms. We need to think about these platforms as blank canvases, right?
Yes.
And like, what do we want to create with this canvas? And it's been so inspiring to me to watch, since my time at Teen Vogue, young people in particular really utilizing social media to mobilize their communities, to educate their communities, and of course to inspire through pretty pictures and selfies. It's all good. No, like there's space for all of it. But I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Like, just because the people in your network or the people that you follow aren't necessarily using a platform in a certain way, if you have a vision, if you have that transformational lens on, and you can see possibility and potential for using a platform for good in the world,
Yes.
go for it. Because if it starts to perform, which it will, if you commit to it and you cultivate the community that wants that content, what you're telling the algorithm is, this is valuable content, right? So we need to feed the algorithm with the kind of content we want to see. And over time, I mean, you're the tech expert now. You can tell me how this thing actually works, but that's how I understand it.
Absolutely. And that's what's really exciting about moving from the editorial space to the user-generated content space, is that the internet of today, as we are using it, we will be creating the internet of our sons, our daughters,
Wow.
our gender nonconforming offspring, whomever they are. We will be making what they see as the standards of beauty. And what's really exciting, certainly, I'm older than Elaine, but that we come from a space where those definitions were more narrow.
Yes.
And it is so moving to see how all of that is changing so
Yes.
much, because as a young person, I didn't get to see that. And so I want more than anything for young people to have that experience when they go on the internet to see a reflection of themselves.
Are you going to make me cry right now,
No,
Oprah?
it is super powerful. And I think it's something that allows what you do every day to feel like a mission.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the takeaway. Like, do not feel like you have to conform to fit into a mold or to a box, because that's what you see everybody else doing on a platform, and you want to win on the platform. So you're like, well, let me study how everyone who's winning is doing this. That market is already saturated. They already exist. They've trained their following to want that. You train your following to expect from you what is authentic for you. So be the deviation. Okay, but I'll answer your question.
And there's already an Elaine. So
yes.
Elaine should be Elaine, and all of you should go after whatever your pocket of the world is. And what's really interesting when I was learning about the founders of Pinterest is that they did not intend to create this exact application for their tool. The idea of pinning inspiration boards of visual images was a facet of another tool they were creating, but they saw that that's what the users, the people were telling them what this thing was. And so they saw it, they took that tiny aspect and made it for over 400 million users that we have now and growing. And so what the internet that I know that you and I want for the world, for humanity, is one that is as diverse as humanly possible. And that's what I'm here to do.
Drop the mic.
You know,
that's it. We could just end the interview there.
No, we're here to learn about everything that Elaine is doing, and she will not let me ask her questions about herself.
Okay, I'll answer your question. Answer your question. I remembered the question. 15% pledge, which I'm so happy to talk about. So essentially, following the murder of George Floyd, like a lot of people, I found myself enraged, outraged, frustrated, without an outlet, without clear calls to action. And I felt there was an urgency to do something. I had to do something to channel all of the pain, all of the disappointment. And so I think the thing to think about is, what is your sphere of influence, and how can you utilize all of your gifts, your talents, your networks, your skill set, and really your privilege to make an impact from right where you are, wherever you are. And for me, I realized I have this Rolodex that is deep across all of these different industries that I've worked in some capacity, and how can I mobilize those networks? So I found myself on a phone conversation with my girlfriend, Aurora James, who's also an entrepreneur, a Black woman, and a small business owner who's been very successful. And we were talking about how all of these like vague Black Lives Matter corporate messages and hashtags that were coming out of these companies just felt so insincere, and it felt empty, and it didn't feel like enough. And so rather than just complaining about that, we were like, what would be enough? Like, what would be the call to action if we had a seat at one of those tables, or if we could pick up the phone and call someone, which, by the way, we actually can. And most Black women in this country do not have that kind of access. So by all means, if we do, we need to use it for good. So we got to get to work. What is the call to action? And so Aurora said, in this particular case, we were talking about a particular retailer. And Aurora said, you know what I think they should do? Because 15% of our population in this country is Black, we should call on all major retailers to dedicate 15% of their shelf space and their purchasing power to Black-owned businesses, at a minimum. At a minimum. And by doing that work, you start to recognize all of the other areas for opportunity within your ecosystem. But let's create one simple to understand measurable metric that we can call on all of these companies to rally behind, to sign up for, to really try to create an industry-wide standard, a new standard by which we measure our progress as it relates to, addressing systemic racism, right? Because we've been talking about diversity and inclusion forever. You and I know this from our world, fashion and media. We've been talking about this on the runway, campaigns, you name it. But because there is no metric, and leaders are not held accountable to making any measurable change, we can just get away with talking about it and not really making changes. And so the 15% pledge really is a call to action that is about real long-term accountability. And so we're so proud that we've had a number of major retailers sign on, starting with Sephora, West Elm. We have Rent the Runway, you name it, and there's a number of others that we're so excited to announce soon.
Yeah, the list goes on.
The list goes on, and then we've had folks in the media space and in other, non-retail specific spaces reach out to us and say, we love what you stand for, what you represent. How can we take the pledge? How can we apply this for our industry?
Yeah.
And so Vogue has signed on. There's another big publishing house that's about to sign on. And I think, as it relates to this conversation with creators, I think we all have a certain responsibility with our platform, no matter how big or how small it is, to be thoughtful about what we're putting into the world and how we can use it to actually empower, certain voices that are underrepresented.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, one of my priorities is to make sure that I am promoting Black-owned businesses.
Yes.
That I think are worthy of patronizing. And I think we need to make sure that we are pushing this narrative that supporting Black-owned businesses is not just for Black consumers. Black people make products for everybody. For everybody.
Shocking.
And I liken it to, I'm a former beauty editor, so I liken it to, the Korean beauty trend, revolution, rather. I went to South Korea and fell in love with the beauty culture there. I was buying up everything, all the masks. I lived for that culture, and I wanted to understand and participate. That became such a huge industry. And guess what? Everybody was buying Korean beauty products and still are. So I think that's a good example of how we need to think about supporting Black-owned businesses and seeking out products that we love.
Yeah.
And just going outside of what you're used to find and to really seek out Black-owned products, Black-owned businesses that produce products that you want in your life every single day. So it just requires us to be a little bit smarter, a little bit more responsible.
Well, and what's great is that young people really care. And
they do.
Supporting businesses that have values
Yes.
that align with theirs genuinely matters. And at Pinterest on October 1st, we'll be launching our Community Rebuild project, which was born, as you're saying, you have to start where you are.
Yes.
You have to start with your own network. And this was a project that was created out of the Black Employee Network at Pinterest, who wanted to support Black-owned businesses. And they said, we are going to do it. We're going to make our list, and we are going to give them education, financing, ad credits, and make sure that they understand how to use this surface. Because if you are a small business, frankly, of any kind, and you are not using Pinterest to drive consumers to your e-commerce site, you are insane.
Right.
Because it is such a huge space for shopping, Black-owned and otherwise.
Yes.
And we as a community want very much to make sure that small businesses are educated with the right tools to win.
Yes.
So now that is open to anyone to nominate Black-owned businesses that they want to have this appropriate education, financing, and opportunities. And you just email communityrebuild@pinterest.com to nominate yourself or someone else. And
love that.
It's so awesome because I think that, as we're talking about this idea of algorithmic bias, we need to take measures like this to educate the surfaces that we use, the platforms, whatever they may be, to make sure that all of the platforms understand what we care about.
Yes. Preach.
So what else is in the future of 2020 and 2021 for you?
Oh, well, I'm actually working on a number of things. I have too many jobs, too many hats, but I wouldn't have it any other way. There's a couple of things I'm really excited about. I am actually working on adapting my book into a scripted television show, which is a whole other part of my brain that I have not tapped into. You know, script writing it's a beast, but it's fun to learn, gaining new skills, and that's good. It's also like hard on your ego. I'm also, there's a number of things, but one other project that I'm really excited about is this 6-part vodcast, which is a video podcast.
Cool.
Where we're shining a light on Black-owned businesses, past and present, that are redefining our culture. So that'll be coming out, I think, next month in October. So and there's a number of other things, but I think the work continues around 15% pledge. That's really an important part of what I do. It's like all the varied things I do in all the different spaces, I feel like they all kind of ladder up to this work, and it's always going to be important, an important part of what I stand for.
So one of the interesting things that I have been saying to people, as you know, everyone's asking me questions about this job that I have just started, and I was saying to one of my best friends, I was saying, like, you know, no financial advisor would ever tell you to invest all your money in one stock. We have to diversify.
Yes.
And that's the same is true of social media. We need to, I embrace and I love all the platforms. I happen to work at Pinterest, so I love it the most, but I embrace and I support all of them. How will you be using Pinterest to support the message that is Elaine Welteroth?
Yeah, we're working on a 15% pledge Pinterest page, so you guys need to check that out. I've been a long time like Pinterest voyeur, where I'm just sort of experiencing Pinterest through other people's pins, and I'm now challenging myself to be more active with like putting my content out there, and I find it to be a non-judgmental place, like where you can just like put stuff out there and there isn't that like pressure to perform, right? And that's what I really love about the space. So I'm definitely working on creating a 15% pledge Pinterest universe. So guys, look out for that. And then on a personal note, I'm obsessed with home decor. All of a sudden, just being trapped in the house throughout this lockdown period, I'm like, why aren't my sheets like the Four Seasons sheets? Like, you know, I haven't traveled in a long time, and I'm like, you know what? This is not as luxurious as it should be. Let me elevate. And so I'm like into plants all of a sudden. I've been nesting, and so I
Love that.
really into like really deep into my home decor.
Well, and that's the really important thing about being a creator on Pinterest, is that we really aspire to make sure that our content adds to your real life.
Yes.
Isn't just an addictive hole that you slide down into and suddenly 4 hours of your day is gone.
Although that happens.
That can happen. But that these ideas that we are finding and surfacing through this discovery engine add to your real life and allow you to go out into the world a more educated person.
Yes.
One last thing, I think that, you know, there are so many young women that look up to your career. I'm sure you must just you can't walk down the street without people, you know, coming up with tears in their eyes to tell you how much you've changed their lives, and you don't even know them.
What's walking down the street?
I know, yeah, what is walking down the street? But that, you know, growing an audience is something that so many young creators want so badly.
Yeah.
What advice can you give people to grow an audience in an authentic way?
Yeah.
I know authentic is such a cheesy word, but you know what I mean.
I know. Anything that I could say to answer this is gonna sound like totally cliche, but it is just the truth that being yourself is the only way to grow a community that you will want to be a part of. Because I always say, I don't want to build a company that I don't want to work for. And I don't want to cultivate a community that doesn't feel like a safe space for me. So I really believe that authenticity is it's magnetic. It's
Yes.
it gives permission to other people to also be who they are. Like when there's nothing more attractive or sticky than being in the company or an observation of somebody who is the fullest embodiment of themselves.
Thank you so much, Elaine, for joining us today. And
Thank
creators,
you.
please follow Elaine Welteroth on Pinterest. And we will be sure to be following everything that she's going to be creating, from home decor to what she's eating to what she's wearing. And I think that, you know, what she said about creating a transformational lens through everything that you do, we'll be able to follow that on her Pinterest profile as well.